By 1975, the X-Men had basically faded into obscurity. They were forgotten, almost. But then suddenly everything changed. Giant-sized X-Men #1 hit the scene and introduced the comics world to an international team made up of members like Wolverine, Storm, Colossus, Nightcrawler, Banshee, and Thunderbird, and eventually more. It was that moment that resurrected the X-Men name, and it set the stage for decades of great stories. So today we're going to look at that particular year, and we're going to look at 3 essential issues that turned it all around for the uncanny X-Men. And we're going to start with Giant X-Men #1, which was a senses-shattering first issue. 68 big pages. This was a big-time comic back in that time. You gotta love this cover, the new X-Men bursting through the paper as the old X-Men look on in shock. And this is a deadly genesis, which we will see immediately. In Germany, Winseldorf to be specific. And this is in the Bavarian Alps. In this village, there are people carrying torches. And this dude in a suit and tie, "This way, men. The monster went this way." And we recognize this man who's already in a costume. Monster, is it? The fools. It is they who are the monsters. I don't do a great German accent. I might not really try too much. They who are the monsters with their mindless prejudices. As Nightcrawler slinks away. He's on the escape. Crawling up the walls and so on. And he says here, "At least if I die, it will be as a man." All these this angry mob with torches and a cross. Man holding a cross, saying, "Go away, you fools, I've done nothing." Calling a crowd of people "you fools" isn't really gonna placate them or pacify them too effectively, I think. And of course, they react violently. An inferno erupts, and Nightcrawler jumps into the fray. And look at what he says here. "And for what reason? I came among them only to learn, yet all I've learned thus far are the ways of blind, unreasoning violence. Well, if that's all that those who dwell in the normal world have to teach me." And then he dives in. Fighting in this crowd, a voice says, "Stop." And remarkably, everyone does stop. And then Nightcrawler saying, "Was? Was ist das?" Right? They're not moving. What has happened to them? And then Charles Xavier appears. "I happened to them, Kurt Wagner. My name is Charles Xavier. I heard you say you'd come here to learn, my friend. I am a teacher. I run a school for gifted youngsters such as you. A school for mutants." Alright. Is he a teacher, though? I thought of him more as like the principal. You know, he pops into the classes, showing his face once in a while. But I don't think he's getting up, at the blackboard. These days it'd be a smart board, but I don't see him doing that. Moving on to Quebec, Canada. To us Canadians, that's kind of vague. Quebec, Canada. Where in Quebec? Well, then again, maybe few people know of this secluded military installation. Alright, fine, it's somewhere in Quebec. And what's the true purpose of this place? And it says here, the agent cipher-coded Weapon X. It's very special agent, and you're going to know him. He's better known to us as the Wolverine. Okay, and this is the first appearance of Wolverine in the X-Men. He had fought the Hulk in 74, so I don't remember if it's a full 12 months before. But anyways, not that far before. And here he says, "All right, gents, I'm here. Now who's this bigwig you want me to meet?" All right. Bigwig. It's ironic calling Professor X a bigwig. with no hair on his head. I am the bigwig Wolverine, Professor Charles Xavier at your service. You know, and Wolverine's not impressed. You know, he's not impressed. They offer Wolverine something here. And he says, an offer, eh? It's real Canadian, eh? Alright, okay, Prof, you've piqued my curiosity. What's the deal? And then, you know, Professor X just gets straight to the point. I know of your recent battle with the Hulk, and moreover, I know of your powers. You, my friend, are a mutant, and I have need of mutants. Desperate need of mutants. And you can see the desperation in his eyebrows. You know, for a bald man, he's not lacking the follicles there. Alright, and look at what Wolverine has to say. His Canadian government handler, you know, trying to lock him down. You can't do that to Logan. And Professor X saying, I'm offering you a chance to become a free agent. A chance to learn to put your powers to their greatest use. A chance to get out from under the red tape and rigmarole, eh? Alright, Professor, you've found your man. And this dude is irate. What? What? Not so fast, fella. He's talking about the government's investment in him. Look at this. You try walking out on us, and I'll have you locked up. And Wolverine, he doesn't give a damn. He's giving him the middle finger claw, if you see that. It doesn't seem you get my meaning, friend. This is still a free country, isn't it? And he just hacks off his tie. I'm resigning my commission, effective immediately. Unless, of course, you have any further objections. I didn't think so. Alright. So Wolverine's out of here. Screw the Canadian government. I'm doing my own thing. Yeah, I'm alright with that. Do your thing. And look at this dude with his half chopped off tie. Yeah, that's what you get, man. Alright. And then look at this. In Nashville, Tennessee, a visitor to the Grand Ole Opry finds he has a visitor of his own. And it's Banshee. Let me see if I can do this. Begorra, 'tis Professor X himself now. By the way, Banshee, isn't that a female type of monster? I never got Banshee fully, to be honest, this character. But anyways, Banshee, I must talk with you. And look at this. Shortly in the Banshee's shabby quarters. Like, why you gotta call him out like that? Shabby. Call him just quarters, not even just, you know, his apartment, his room. And he doesn't even hesitate. He's like, yeah, alright. Yeah, I'll be happy to join you, Professor X. Alright, moving on to Kenya in East Africa. Well, just Kenya. Kenya's the country, man. Alright, atop a lonely knoll, there stands a great stone portal. And look at this. Men approaching the top of this staircase to this portal, and who do they see? Aurora, great goddess of the storm. And as we see in the next panel here, the storm goddess comes. Alright. She got a serious weave going on. Look at that head of hair, man. That's ridiculous. Tina Turner wished she had a wig like that back in the 80s. She had a big ass wig back then. For all you young whippersnappers who don't know about Tina Turner, she was killing it around 84, man, killing it. All right, there's drought upon the land, blessed one, our crops wither, and then of course Aurora, calling out her blue eyes, it's weird as hell, and older than time, they sparkle as she answers. And look at what she does here. With her impressive powers flying into the air, the howling winds come up and sweep the storm goddess away. She soars aloft like an ebon bird, lightning lancing from her fingertips, the glow of life shining full upon her face. This is good art, though, I gotta say. Like, they're really selling it. Bringing rain, no more drought. And the sky weeps. under her control. Professor X rolls up. A most impressive display, Ororo. Truly beautiful. Alright, and look at what he makes her an offer. And she's like, what have you to offer a goddess? Alright, I mean, she's kind of believing her own hype a bit here, Storm. Take it easy a little bit. I know you're, doing so. By the way, her mutant power, what kind of mutant power is that? It's kind of is goddess-like. It's a bit too all-powerful. She can do everything. I don't know, man. I don't know. Sometimes mutant powers just include anything under the sun. Anything you can imagine, I guess. But here we go. He's offering her the world, not just her land. And look at what he says in the middle. You are no goddess, Ororo. You are a mutant, and you have responsibilities. Come with me, child. Taste the world outside. You may find its flavor bitter or surprisingly sweet. He's getting hungry while talking to her about it, but, knocking her down a peg, humbling her. But if you're going around calling yourself a goddess, I mean, someone gotta say something about that. All right. But anyways, she senses the deep sincerity in his words and decides it's time for her to leave. And then moving on to Osaka, Japan, the beautiful city of Osaka. I know it well. I know that city very well. Two old acquaintances share tea in the splendid garden of Shiro Yoshida. And he's sitting down with dude here, Shiro-san, offering him, what he's offered everyone else, but knowing that he has negative feelings about the Western world. You require help that only I may give. So, I owe you nothing, Professor, but perhaps I owe something to myself. Sunfire, look at this. Perhaps it's time once more for the world to hear from Sunfire. Yeah, we're gonna regret that pretty soon. Spoiler alert, this guy's a douche. Alright, anyways, moving on, we're going on to Siberia in Russia, Lake Baikal. And this is in 1975, let's remember that. So it's been a good year for the Ust Ordinsky Collective Farm. Damn. Look at the crops here. Look at this dude here. Peter, look, your sister. What is? No. Oh, and he sees his sister playing in the field, carelessly. Alright, Peter Rasputin looks up from his work. And he knows he's got to act, so he runs without hesitation. And look what happens in the middle of this panic. He turns into who we know as Colossus. And he gets there in time. The tractor basically gets crushed because of him. The hero encountered by Professor X. Peter Rasputin, I wish to talk to you. And this voice in the head, we know who that is. And we see here, you want me to go with you to America. America, oh. Alright. But if I possess such power as you say, does it not belong to the state? All he knows is communism. Sorry, Peter. Power such as yours belongs to the world, to be used for the good of all. So yeah, he goes to talk to his parents. And look at his mother there. Oh, she's sad. So sad. But they know he's gotta go. He's gotta go. And then we're on to Camp Verde in Arizona. John Proudstar does not like the reservation. He does not like to watch the old ones sitting slumped against their doorsteps, dreaming dreams of glory long gone. John Proudstar is an Apache, and he is ashamed of his people. What an intro. The Apache were meant to be hunters, warriors, not sad-eyed simpering squaws. They were meant to run free through the crisp plains grasses, the wind blowing wildly through their hair. Once, nothing could stand before the Apache. The bison that covered these plains fell like rain before Apache skill, Apache bravery. But never did any bison fall like this. There, horned one, do you see? There is still a man among the Apache. And such a man I've come looking for, John Proudstar. And here, of course, it's Professor X. And look at John Proudstar. He got some mouth on him. In almost every panel, he's got something to say about somebody. Look at what he says here. Now, how in blazes did a cripple get way out here? Not that it matters much. You've got 5 seconds to vamoose, White Eyes, and I don't want company, especially yours. Damn, John. Okay. Don't be too hasty, my young friend. And of course, calling him, letting him know he's a mutant. He's special. He's needed. Look at what he says here. And you can stuff a cactus, Custer. The white man needs me? That's tough. I owe him nothing but the grief he's given my people. Alright, well, he's not holding back for anybody here. Now beat it. Okay? And look at what Professor X the route he decides to take with John Proudstar. I offer you a chance to help the world and you turn your back on me? Then perhaps what they say is true. Perhaps the Apache are all frightened, selfish children. Oh no. Okay, he's taking it there. Professor X is taking it there. And look at this. Okay, that does it. I love that. Okay. He's not having it, man. Ain't nobody that calls me a coward, mister. Ain't nobody that calls me a coward. I'm as good as the next guy. Hell, I'm better. You give me a chance, I'll prove it. Alright. And there you go. That's all it takes. He just likes to needle people into into joining. Alright, and there you go. Chapter 2 of this giant-sized X-Men. Here saying, or seeing everybody in their uniforms for the first time. And this is in Westchester, New York, at the school for gifted mutants. And as it says here, the school had seemed a latter-day Tower of Babel at first, but a telepathic crash course in the English language had closed the communication gap in mere minutes. What? Okay, what did he do? He forced them to learn English telepathically? All right. Okay. Look at what he says. All these X-Men looking at their costumes. And at the bottom here, the uniforms are constructed from unstable molecules which adjust themselves where necessary. I obtained them from a man named Reed Richards, and I'm certain you'll learn more of him and his friends later. Yeah, unstable molecules. Isn't that convenient? And now, look at this. My friends, allow me to present Scott Summers, the man called Cyclops. And they've got a mission here. Take a look at what he has to say. Cyclops in his reintroduction. We'd all answered the signal alarm within seconds. The Professor, Angel, Iceman, Marvel Girl, Lorna Dane, also known as Polaris, my brother Havoc, and myself. Okay, so the original X-Men, except for Beast at this point, saying here that Cerebro has detected a new mutant on the island of Krakoa in the South Pacific. A mutant so powerful as to defy classification. So of course they have the mission to find that mutant. Okay, so in this flashback, you see they're in the Blackbird, and I always loved the Blackbird. Although I don't know how they're qualified to pilot this thing. And whenever Cyclops is piloting it, I cringe. Like, how can you? He has no peripheral vision whatsoever, and everything looks red to him. How are you gonna let that guy pilot a plane? All right. So as this plane touches down in Krakoa in the South Pacific, look at what Iceman has to say. I think we took the wrong bus, gang. This place sure doesn't look like Cleveland. All the insects in the air, the overgrown jungle. On second thought, maybe this is Cleveland. Cleveland catching strays, man. Catching a lot of strays. All right. Cyclops. I told you before, Iceman, shelve the snappy patter. We have a difficult job ahead of us, finding that new mutant. All right. And look at this. Soon enough, they are horrified at some of the things they're feeling and seeing. And you see here, Cyclops himself waking up in what looks to be the Blackbird without his visor. Okay, and his eyes, he's saying, my eyes are uncovered. They're, and it says here, normal, powerless. However hard I try, I can't project my optic blasts. All right. And that's when he realized he was back on the jet. He doesn't know what's going on. All right. So, minutes later, he's trying to figure out what's happening still. He manages to get back to New York in the Blackbird. And of course, Professor X isn't sure what the hell's going on with his powers either. But you see, they're coming back. His eyes are glowing again. And then quickly grab some protective lenses. Your optic powers have returned. And look at this. And he says, but I should have known better than to even ask. The optic energies that had cursed me since my early teens were back again with a vengeance. And look at this blast. This is great comic art, I just gotta say. I love that stuff. And then finally, Cyclops is here saying, the professor modified one of my old visors to contain my increased power. So you see his visor is different. This is his updated visor with a different look. And now, Cyclops is telling them, what now? We need to go back to Krakoa to find the original X-Men and the mutant that defeated us. Okay? And look at Sunfire. Sunfire, look, I'm telling you, he's got a lot to say. Incorrect, Cyclops. Now you go back to Krakoa, not I. I will have no part in this fool's errand. He speaks great English, by the way. All non-English speakers speak great English in Marvel Comics. They just sound pompous. That's it. No grammar mistakes at all. I don't understand, Sunfire. We offer you a chance to help your fellow mutants, and look at this. I do not even like my fellow mutants. But I don't have time. Or I will certainly not risk my life to help them. Okay? And they're done arguing. And Cyclops, I'm glad what he has to say. I feel sorry for you, Sunfire, but I don't have time to waste arguing. The rest of us have a job to do. We're going to do it. Good call, Cyclops. Okay? So then, they are back on the Blackbird. And they have a bit of banter going on here. And again, Thunderbird, as they're going to call him, always got something to say. And he's always calling Cyclops One Eye, as you can see here. Okay? We're all involved in this fiasco for our own reasons, girly. And patting each other on the back ain't one of the, huh? Hey, One Eye, there's something following us. Alright, and look, it's Sunfire. I see it, Geronimo. I think that's probably Wolverine who said that. And look at the next quote here, which I won't say. Well, I'll be jiggered, One Eye. Alright, just calling people out by outside their names in this comic sometimes. That's oof. Okay, wash your mouth out. Okay, and then Sunfire wants back. Okay? He wants back in. And Nightcrawler calls him out. So the prodigal mutant returns. Why did you change your mind, Sunfire? Afraid to go home alone? My reasons are nobody's business but my own, misfit. You'll do well. Do well to remember that. Man, what a douche. Alright. Continuing on. As they approach their target here. They decide on what they're going to do. And they're splitting off into teams. The assault teams will be as follows. Alright? And they're giving their code names here for the first time. Storm, you and Colossus will come in from the north. Banshee and Wolverine will move across from the east. Alright? Look at this. 'Tis a pleasure to be working with you, laddie. And Wolverine saying, whoopee. Whoopee. Alright, Sunfire and Nightcrawler will start searching from the... No, not him. I did not hear Cyclops giving you a choice, man. Alright. Yeah, call out Sunfire every time. Okay, so Cyclops and Thunderbird, as he says here, on their own little mission. Look at this. Cyclops giving orders, and Proud Star, Thunderbird saying, yes, sir, General One-Eye, sir. I just hope you're not leading me into another little bighorn. It'd just be my luck to be the first Indian to get massacred by what? What? And then they're all tripping because the Stratojet, the Blackbird, it's gone. It's mysteriously gone. Alright. And then in the next panel you see here Cyclops shocked to see strange temples don't suddenly spring up out of nowhere. Or do they? Alright, and then on the east side of the island, Banshee and Wolverine are dealing with some giant crab. Man. Alright, Wolverine is dealing with this silly crab, man. What the hell's going on in this island? Jesus. Alright. And he keeps calling him Irish. In the manner of a few panels, he calls him Irish. How many? 3 times in 3 panels. That's prolific, man. Alright, in the last part here, he says, hey, are you going to stand around gawking, Irish? Or are you going to help me? Alright, and moving on to the north side of the island, we have Storm and Colossus, who are also noticing a temple growing out of nowhere that did not exist before. And then an avalanche hits. Seeing here, look at this. The rocks from the avalanche are changing direction. They're actually following them, flying after them. Peter Rasputin, Colossus, picks up a tree, and just like Babe Ruth, just swats him away. They don't know baseball in Siberia, do they? Yeah, but they deal with that pretty effectively, collectively, as we can say. And then Nightcrawler and Sunfire on the south side of the island, dealing with some giant birds. Alright? Birds are preventing them from reaching the temple. And Sunfire's just being a total ass in every comment he's got to say here. Alright. Again, the birds keep coming. And Nightcrawler using his powers to get out the way and laughing, which sounds like a howl, as they say here. Yeah, and again, Sunfire is not appreciating that whatsoever. Your manner seems much like that of the beasts you so resemble, misfit. How appropriate. Alright. Alright, and then they do gather at this temple. They finally make it. Alright. But they're blocked by a thick wall, as it says here. And then, how are they going to get through? It says here in the bottom, breaking and entering. Although the neophyte X-Men lack the finesse of their predecessors, they certainly get an A for effort. And they make it through. They bust through that wall only to see, oh my God, and find their hearts swelling heavy in their throats. Oh my dear God, it's the other X-Men. And something seems to be feeding on them. Yeah, that's a creepy image right there. Okay, and they do finally get them free. Okay, and as they do, they escape the temple, and the temple topples into ruin behind them. And look at what Angel has to say. Why, Cyclops? Why did you come back for us? And they're like, huh, what? You fool, don't you understand? It wanted you to come back and bring others with you. It was all a trap, and now it's too late. Okay, and look, the ground rearing up around the temple. Of course, haven't you realized yet? We came to this island to look for a mutant, but the mutant is the island itself. That's a big shock reveal. Although, like, mutants are homo superiors, right? But this is an island. I mean, what? I mean, we're stretching the definition of mutant a lot, as Marvel Comics is known to do. But anyways, let's move on past that. We're on to chapter 4 of this famed issue. And then as this beast of an island grows, this is Krakoa, the island that walks like a man. Alright. And it says here, images flood mutant minds as they stand rooted to the spot. The sunburst brilliance of an early atomic test, whose unseen radiation permeated every living organism here, until they grew linked in a colony intelligence that gave the island a life of its own. I mean, is that a mutant? I don't know. That sounds like some Godzilla type stuff, man. Anyways, whatever. And then it says here, Krakoa grew hungry then. A hungry barely appeased when the X-Men arrived upon the scene. Krakoa fed upon their mutant energies and grew hungrier still. Thus it released one X-Man and sent him forth to find more food, which Cyclops did. Alright, and here they do battle with this island, as they say. And this is a pretty sweet panel. There's a lot going on here as the collective efforts of the X-Men combine against Krakoa, the living island. Alright, mere words could never begin to describe the sheer unbridled savagery of the battle that follows, so we won't even attempt it here. Alright, but look, Professor X jumps in to say, stop, you're going about this all wrong. I've been mentally monitoring your battle thus far, studying this living island, and I believed I've discovered its sole weak point. And then he comes up with a plan here. Alright, and he joins the battle. Because in an instant, Professor Charles Xavier's mental commands are projected halfway around a world. Then he closes his eyes, steels himself for the coming ordeal, and concentrate. And the battle is joined. Alright, so here he is, in a war fought on two fronts. Professor X wages deadly mental combat with a crazed community intellect, while his students race to carry out his plan. Alright. Storm rises high in the air, summoning her electric energy. And this lightning is transmitting down to Polaris, who waits anxiously below, restoring the magnetic powers of the girl called Lorna Dane. Alright? And Polaris and Storm's energies combining here. Within moments, the circuit is completed, and Lorna Dane screams in anguish as her physical limits are reached and exceeded. All right. And she's saying, don't stop. Lord, whatever you do, don't stop. All right. And she's just overloading with power. Havoc, worried about the woman he loves. And Cyclops saying, Alex, I can't stop it. Okay, knowing that they need this level of power in order to deal with the menace of Krakoa. All right. But look at these two panels. These are very, very, very distinctive and very unique. How vertical they are. Storm in the air. Polaris at the bottom. The remainder of Havoc's angry outburst is slain by the crackling roar of the thunderous downpour. All right. And in the next similar panel to that, look at this. With almost indescribable force, Lorna's magnetic energies are up downward, through 5 miles of ocean, through 4,000 miles of the Earth's ancient crust, down to the very molten center of the planet itself. Damn. That's there's a lot going on right there. Look at the scale. And that panel, I think, hopefully shows that. That's incredible. All right. And here, as we will see, it is fighting back. Krakoa is fighting back. All right. And then Scott Summers and Havoc join forces as well. And it says here, with that, a solemn Scott Summers turns to find that the figure of Lorna Dane has become lost within a coruscating incandescent tower of sheer magnetic force. His mutant eyes narrow, and for a single word forms upon his lips, and he and Havoc combine to blast Krakoa and hitting it with something that is changing it. All right, and it says here, it's working exactly as the professor said it would. We've only got seconds to clear out of here before the end. All right. And then they know that they need to hightail it out of here. They need to vamoose. All right. Look at this. Holy crow. Will you take a look at that beach up ahead? The whole freaking island is breaking up around us. And they don't have the jet yet. Or they don't have it back. All right. But look, Iceman, knowing that he can use his powers. And he says here, never let it be said we Icemen aren't good for some things, Angel. Or something, Angel. Everybody get aboard and fast. So he basically makes an ice flow. By the way, appreciate the art in a panel like this. This is really well done, large scale stuff here. Swiftly, the desperate X-Men clamber aboard the crude ice raft, then hang on for dear life, as the mutant powers of Cyclops and Havoc propel the makeshift vessel away from Krakoa with the speed of a hurtling hydroplane. All right, and look at this, again, the island itself. Behind them, the world convulses in carnage as the results of Lorna Dane's energy bolt become apparent at last. For her electrically charged burst has cut across the planet's primary lines of magnetic force, severing them, and for an instant, about the island Krakoa, gravity ceases to exist. Okay? Then the Earth forces come violently together, and the effect is the same as squeezing wet soap through a fist. What the hell, man? I think they just ruined their whole description with that last. Like, come on, soap through a fist. You could have come up with something else. Got me thinking about Dove soap while this disaster is underway. And look at this. Krakoa's death cries ring for long seconds in the mind of the awestruck X-Men as it flies out into space. Wow. And then the X-Men are not out of Dodge just yet. There's trouble ahead. And look here. The ocean is rushing to fill in the space Krakoa just vacated. And we're caught in the whirlpool. Alright. And then again, Iceman comes in to throw an airtight ice dome over the raft. Okay, and look at this. It's our only chance to survive this miserable maelstrom. Maelstrom. I love that word. I always thought it was a typo back in the day. I thought they meant to say maelstrom. Alright, anyways. I was wrong. Okay, and the ice bubble swirls into this vortex. Alright. And this whole situation looks dire. Alright. Those within are battered almost senseless against its cold, unfeeling walls. They voice their pain enthusiastically, and then they are gone. The seething waters swirl closed above their heads, and for a time the sea is calm. The minutes pass interminably. Then the huge gleaming bubble bursts the water's surface, and is itself burst in turn by a beam of scarlet fury. And that is Cyclops. And they're out. Fresh air. A warm sun. Did you ever see anything more beautiful? Alright. And they have their jet back. Look at that. As they say, oh yeah, I forgot. The old Stratojet's watertight. Paddle on over while I open the hatch. Alright, good news. And here is the end of the story of part 1 of this. Sorry we don't have seats for all of you, but this plane wasn't designed to carry so many mutants, which brings us to our next problem. What are we going to do with 13 X-Men? Well, that's Angel talking. We know what we're going to do with you. Alright, but that's the end of Giant Size X-Men number 1. We're going to move on to the next part of this 3-parter.